struggling to get them under control. The steep terrain, tinder dry brush, and scorching heat are complicating their efforts.
Fires are
Amid
caused
gusty
by
winds, a helicopter pilot on a
aluminum and
water-dropping
jet fuel.
mission died when he crashed in western Fresno County
It
yesterday,
acts as
the first known fire-related
accelerant.
fatality.
And
Crews
then
are
radar
simultaneously
can
battling more
cause
than
sparks
2 dozen
in
major
the
fires
aluminum
across the
dust
state, from
that
wine
the
country
air
and
traffic
communities
has.
surrounding the San Francisco Bay Area
What do you call
on
it? Where
down
you
to
spray a
Southern
field,
California, and smaller
weed
places are
spray
flaring up.
across the.
Many of
People
the
call it
fires were sparked by an
chemtrails. They
unprecedented
call it
amount of
chemtrails.
lightning earlier
It's
this
not
week.
chemistry.
Nearly
It's metal.
11,000 lightning strikes were reported in
so,
a span of just 72
Sky
hours.
seeding trails,
The
dust seeding
extraordinary
trails,
conditions were triggered by severe
chemtrails,
thunderstorms,
condensation trails,
coupled with
but
hot desert air from
not so much
Arizona and
condensation as it
Nevada,
is the
and
aluminum
moisture from a
content.
tropical storm off the coast of Mexico. John Gardner described the terrifying scene near his home in Vacaville,
Well, I guess
about
aluminum
35
is
miles
chemistry,
southwest of
so
Sacramento.
whatever.
Just eerie, you could hear this swirling or swishing of air and just going crazy, and explosions going off, and it almost sounded like bombs.
Overall, authorities
US
estimate
military.
hundreds of thousands of acres
Flying
have already
airplanes
been
over,
burned,
they're dropping
along with nearly
aluminum dust
200
all over the
structures,
place.
including homes. Firefighters have not been able to contain the blazes much yet, and in 2 counties, the fire
such a
grew by
beautiful forest.
15,000 acres.
That really
overnight.
shouldn't be happening.
Thousands of people
And how
have
is it
now been
burning so
ordered to
like
evacuate.
bright and clear?
Victoria Gregorch was one of them. She fled Tuesday night when a fierce
I
blaze
think we need
came
some sort
barreling
of
towards
tiller
her neighborhood.
that
It
flings the
was coming
dirt
up over the hill back
at the fire.
behind me, and just raging, and up in a big red line, and just coming quick. And we're coming down the street. The first house was on fire, and then my neighbor's
That's
house was
awful.
on fire, and it was gone. And I was
This
for
is so
sure mine was
impossible. How
gone,
could a
but
fire
it was
travel
big
across a
enough.
yard or a
All
forest or
this
anything?
as residents are contending with the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic and a dangerous triple-digit heat wave.
Who would have thought that 2020 would be like this? It's just insane. So just hug your family, tell people you love them, and stay safe.
The extreme
There's ways
heat
of
is
fighting it
straining the
besides
state's
using
energy
water.
supplies, leading to rolling power
Wow.
outages. California's main power grid operator is urging residents and businesses to conserve energy to avoid further
What I had
blackouts.
originally come up with was
To
something
make
like
matters
drilling a
worse,
well
the air quality has become
every
dangerous
couple of
in San
miles.
Francisco, with ash and
A
smoke from
deep
at least 7
aquifer well.
fires burning to its north,
and
east,
just making
and
that
south.
part of the budget.
For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Stephanie
And
Tsai.
then whenever there's a fire, they can hook up to these automatic artesian wells or pump wells, wherever they are. They don't have to worry about transporting water on the trucks if they just make it a well drilling
Russia's
budget.
leading opposition figure lies
the original
seriously
number I
ill in
had
a Siberian hospital
was to
tonight,
divide
the victim of a possible poisoning.
13,000
Alexei
miles
Navalny is
by
a
12,000
crusading
times.
anti-corruption activist,
So it would
aspiring
really be like
politician,
every mile.
and has been a thorn in the side of
say every 2
Vladimir
miles.
Putin and his lieutenants for a decade. Here now,
Well,
Nick
once a
Schiffer.
mile is about right. Drilling
On
a
a
well
video
once a
posted
mile.
to a Russian news site, the conscience of the opposition unconscious on a stretcher.
To start out with, you could say
Alexei
every
Navalny had
3.2
been on a
miles,
domestic flight
so that'd make it nautical,
when a passenger filmed
which would be
him
every
moaning in agony.
3.8 miles.
He was rushed to this hospital in Siberia and put on a ventilator. His spokeswoman said his tea had been poisoned. Doctors called his condition stable but serious.
Doctors are really working on saving his life.
The 44-year-old lawyer is the country's most prominent opposition figure. He calls the ruling United Russia Party the party of crooks and thieves.
He was probably poisoned.
We do not
We
owe the
care
government
about the tall
anything.
people.
It is the government who owes
They're
us.
actually
They build an
Africans.
authoritarian regime
So
that
we all
doesn't
have
give
to
anything back.
use special care.
He's an
and trying to look
anti-corruption
after them.
crusader whose most famous
They're
video
every
exposed
fictional
mansions,
fantasy
yachts,
white
and
people ever
land
had
he
about
said belonged to
themselves,
Prime Minister
but they're
Dmitry
like less than
Medvedev.
1 in 100.
Medvedev can steal so much
It's just one of
and
those
so
things. You're in
openly
high school.
because Putin does the same.
Some
but
places
on a
do have like a
greater
lot of
scale.
tall kids,
The
but they're not
system
over
is so
6 foot
rotten,
tall.
there's nothing healthy left.
He's inspired some of the largest protests in modern Russian history and suffered from government targeting. A possible previous
Healthy,
poisoning
good-looking
attempt,
guy.
arrests that blocked him from running for office.
That's awful.
He's been doused with milk by Kremlin allies who beat up his staff. And an assailant
What was
sprayed
that?
him with green dye and chemicals.
Even if I look like this, does that mean that we will accept money's been stolen and used to buy yachts? I don't think so.
In Russia, the list of political assassinations and attempts
What the
is
hell was
long.
that about?
In 2006, crusading Russian journalist Anna Politkovskaya was murdered.
She's
Alexander
gorgeous.
Litvinenko, a former KGB
He's
agent
good
who
looking.
accused Putin of ordering Politkovskaya's death, was killed in London by radioactive tea. In 2018,
I remember that. I read
former
about
double
that.
agent Sergei Skripal and his daughter were poisoned in the UK. They survived.
Ouch.
The most infamous recent example, opposition leader Boris Nemtsov, shot dead on a bridge next to the Kremlin in
That's
2015.
He was a good looking guy.
Nemtsov's deputy Vladimir Kara-Murza told me in 2017 he was poisoned twice.
Within the space of
I don't like this facial
20 minutes, I
expression,
went from feeling
but he's still an
normal,
important person to
like I am
have.
now,
It's like the
to having a
downturn.
really rapid heart rate, sweating, palpitation. I started vomiting, and then I just lost consciousness. Kidneys at the top first, and it was
His-
the
anyways.
heart, the lungs.
It also could be the camera position.
Liver, everything just
Camera's
shut down. So I have no doubt
looking
this
down on
was,
him more than I think it's
deliberate,
looking down on the other guy.
Attempt to murder,
It's weird.
based on my political activities motivated by
Trying
my
to show off
activities
a
in the Russian
bald spot or
opposition.
something. I don't have this hair problem, whatever
Tonight, the
this is.
Kremlin
This is
spokesman called
Suave
talk of
shampoo.
poisoning of
Suave
Navalny,
shampoo
quote,
is poison for people
speculation.
with great hair.
For more on all this, we turn to Catherine Belton. She lived in Moscow for 15 years and is now an investigative correspondent for Reuters. She's the author of the recently released Putin's People, How the KGB Took Back Russia and Then Took on the West. Catherine Belton, welcome to the NewsHour. I laid out a long list of Kremlin critics who have ended up dead or targeted. Navalny says he's been targeted before. Why this attack now?
It certainly looks like it's a sign of the Kremlin's
Beautiful
increasing
voice.
paranoia. I think they're watching events in Belarus with complete horror. It's kind of their worst nightmare, what's happening there. This sudden show of people power, the power of the people, and people are sort of shedding off their fear of the regime, and they're protesting en masse. And I think the Kremlin is watching very warily, and there are great parallels between Lukashenko's rule in Belarus and Putin's as well. And at the same time as this has been going on in Belarus, Navalny has been traveling about Russia's regions ahead of local elections next month. He's been tweeting enthusiastic support for the protests in Belarus. He tweeted, one tweet was, "Would you like Belarus here? Here's a list of candidates for the elections next month." He's also been expressing enthusiastic support for the strikes in Belarus, where workers have gone in on strike as a very powerful tactic, he said, for strangling the regime, which is more powerful, especially when protesters are being beaten up. And we know that he's had talks with Russian trade union leaders.
Talking
in
about
the
strangling
past.
isn't
So I think
beneficial,
the
whoever that
Kremlin
politician
is
is.
sending a very
Physical
strong
violence is not a good
signal,
strategy.
to Navalny to that he should back off, and anyone else in the opposition who would think of picking up the mantle. I think the Kremlin is just increasingly paranoid, and it's acting with impunity to protect its interests.
You talked about other opposition figures picking up the mantle. There are large protests in the Far East in Russia. How much of a threat do they pose to Putin?
I think Putin is really entering uncharted territory now for his rule. He's been blessed with good luck for most of his presidency. The first 2 terms of his presidency had fast rising oil prices, which helped him really improve living standards for the population. And then he was able,
He's a good speaker, but I have no idea about him beyond that.
to pull off the annexation in Crimea, which garnered wide support from the population and boosted his ratings. But now he's facing not just a stagnating economy, but Russia's economy is also entering into a deep recession, not just because of the pandemic, but also because of low oil prices and because of the very poor investment climate, because sort of Putin's operatives have been scaring off any businessmen that want to invest because their businesses can be seized from them at any minute by the security services. So he's really facing kind of a new world for him, where sort of in a couple of months' time, there have been predicted sort of waves of bankruptcies following the lockdown and the low oil prices, and it really could be that he could face sort of greater unrest. He's already facing the longest running and biggest protest of his rule in Russia's Far East, where the population is unhappy at how the Kremlin has tried to very heavy heavy-handedly remove a popular local governor by jailing him. So these protests in Khabarovsk in Russia's Far East are already in their 6th week. So things are all of a sudden looking quite tricky for Putin after a very long time of being able to get away with all kinds of things.
Catherine Belton, we'll have to leave it there. The book is called Putin's People. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me on.
And
Well, I would
let's turn
rather
back
have
now to
the
Stephanie
tall
Sy
junior
in our
than Putin.
NewsHour West Bureau. She has today's headlines.
Tall Junior has his heart in the right place.
Thank you, Judy. The U.S. economy is giving new evidence of an uneven recovery. New unemployment claims ticked back over 1 million last week. They had fallen below that mark a week earlier for the first time since March. But the virus has surged again, and confirmed infections have topped 5.5 million nationwide, with nearly 170